Normally, I make vessels, vessel forms, not actually to be used, but I really like to make coiled vessels with incredibly smooth, buttery surfaces that are burnished to the point where you just want to rub your face on them, that are smoke fired, which adds a layer of like smoky depth to the colors that I've chosen. To make one of my vessels, I will, because they're larger pieces, I usually work on them in stages. You can't build it all the way because the clay's too wet, it's weak, and it falls down. So you can build part of it, then you can go away and come back a couple hours later, build another part of it, same thing, and I do that over the course of days. So once the pot actually is made, I usually work on several pots at the same time, then I will let the piece dry completely. Then once it is dry, I will sand the piece. So I take actual sandpaper and I sand it until I have smooth surface. Once my surface is completely smooth, I will add terra sigillata, usually, depending if I want to color or not. If I don't want to color, I'll leave it alone. But once the terra sigillata is on, then I will add some baby oil, and I will spend between 4 and 6 hours burnishing, just burnishing. There's still this exact same process as making a coiled pot. I'm just doing it a lot bigger. So instead of making like, pinky-sized coils that I'm working to make these size, I'm making like, toonie-sized ones. And like some of these sculptures, like that has got to be like 300 pounds already. It's huge. It's different pieces, so I can take them apart and whatever. But it's hilarious working on these and making these gigantic pieces that are like the size of an actual human person out of clay. Like I could make cups instead. Like that's valid, but no, I decided I'm gonna make standing gigantic human sculptures that are hundreds of pounds, like a crazy person. It's pretty fun though. It's pretty fun. Don't know when I'll ever get a chance to do something this weird again. Mostly all the pieces that I'm working on right now, I'm making with a cultural context, my cultural context as basis. So by using like woven fibers and the clay that I've been studying for like 15 years, I'm kind of giving like my direct point of view without having to have a whole conversation. Oh, by the way, I am an Indigenous woman of color from Canada, and this is my opinion. It's like, this is my shorthand. I'm using traditional techniques of firing and coiling and burnishing and slips and all of the things that has been traditional within groups of my peoples for thousands of years, and we're having this conversation about the internet. Because why not? Why not? I really was interested, since my mom is also Indigenous, my dad is, from African descent. Indigenous people also do coil and burnish pottery, which is the exact same as this, like same techniques. So I was like, cool. Let's find out about here. Like, come on, we're in Manitoba. It's got to be easier for me to like find some Indigenous potters than it's going to be for me to find African potters. That is not true. I'm literally writing a paper right now that's like about the history of like the Nelson River Basin, and that's like Manitoba, Alberta, Saskatchewan, North Dakota, South Dakota, and like that area. And I have a ton of like prehistoric ceramics. I have a ton of historic ceramics, like after Europeans happened, and then I have one person that I can interview for now about like this area ceramics. One, it's ridiculous how hard it fell off, how quickly. It was like, it's been less than 100 years, dude.
Yeah.
Less than 100 years, gone completely.
Oh.
I also have been doing some weaving, more like basketry, trying to connect both the basketry and the pots together, sort of as a reflection of like, oh, look, two aspects of my culture where these are huge deals, bringing them together, talking about the way I make ceramics and like how I coil them and I burnish them and I smoke fire them and I do all these like traditional firings that are very common in like Africa, or very common in like the American Southwest or in rural India, like super, like out of all the ceramics on the planet, the kind that I do is probably the most common. But here in North America, nobody does it. Everyone's like, you're amazing. I'm like, we got to go to South Africa and we stayed in a lot of rural areas. We got to visit with rural women who were still making pottery as part of like their normal life. But these are like very traditional pots. These are a part of everyday life. Like they have these beer vessels. Like the old men still go and they sit under the tree and they drink their homemade beer and they gossip about the day or whatever. So like these beer vessels are like an important thing. Like when you start a home, you gotta have the beer vessel. Otherwise, what are the old men gonna drink from when they sit under the tree? Like it's important to the culture. So it's still done, and it's still done traditionally. And it's passed down from mother-in-law to daughter-in-law. So if the daughter-in-law moves in from somewhere else, she forgets the way she was taught to make pots when she was little, she adopts the new way of making pots. It's just the way it works there. It's very, very interesting. So not only did I get to learn, like she would teach a daughter-in-law from most of the women, but we got to harvest clay. Like we went to sites and we like dug it out of the ground, and traditional firings where they would use aloe, goat dung, and cow dung to fire pots. The polishing afterwards, so like shining them up so that they looked really great. So like the entire process from beginning to end. And we did that with a couple of different areas within KwaZulu-Natal, which is a province of South Africa. I think that one of the most important things that I've pulled out from, you know, traveling around the world and like inserting myself into other cultures and seeing how other people make pottery and why they make pottery and their traditions about pottery is really kind of made me excited about how much you can borrow and learn from other cultures without stealing their shit. Like how much opportunity there is for like cultural transmission without appropriation. Like it's amazing how much you can actually pull away from that and not, you know, not do anything that's, you know, dickish or thievery. So I've really been surprised about how much I can do that. Like I was talking with a lot of my classes, and I always talk about appropriation and how we can learn about the techniques that they used, and we can, you know, burnish pottery and rake this way, and we can make things in this way, but we don't use iconography. We don't use specialized religious forms. We don't use this because that's not ours and we can't steal it. Like that's not ours. We can put our own stuff if you want on top. That's cool. But like there's like a whole universe of knowledge that you can use before you get to that point. So that's amazing. So I think that's probably something that I'm pretty eager to share with people, because I think that everyone's kind of paranoid about, you know, what they can and cannot appreciate and how they can appreciate and explore other cultures. But they're often quite afraid that they're going to be stealing other cultures or like appropriating or going to be accused of it, I think is more of an issue that we feel here in Canada. And like, there's a huge gulf of stuff that you can do before you get to appropriatiness, right? Like a whole universe. Yeah. I think probably one of the most important things that inspires my work is being able to kind of catch a glimpse and capture a moment in ceramic culture. It's just everybody is sending their kids off to school, and you know it's getting cheaper to buy things from stores like Walmart. That like these traditional craft practices are dying. They're dying so fast, and like just being able to go like, you know what, I've gotten to like immerse myself in like 3 completely different craft practices around ceramics. So like I've seen them, I've recorded them, I've got videos, I've like done interviews, I've met with people. So even if these are wiped out completely, there's still a record that it happened, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that I'm really hoping that everybody does that and like goes out and just like catches it, like rural Indian pottery or like Sri Lankan pottery or, you know, anywhere. And so that there's at least some kind of record that these things existed before everybody is like, you know, Starbucks. Yeah.